Have you ever heard of the Vaimanika Shastra? It's a text, a deeply mysterious one, that speaks of a science of aeronautics from ancient India. It describes incredible flying machines, or Vimanas, in such detail that it forces us to question everything we think we know about the ancient world.
And that's really the heart of it, isn't it? This one staggering question: could our ancestors have mastered flight? Not with simple gliders, but with advanced craft powered by things like mercury vortex engines. It's an almost unbelievable idea, and the story of how this so-called ancient text came to be, well, that's just as strange as the machines it describes.
Now, you're probably thinking this manuscript was found in some hidden cave or dug up from an ancient ruin, but that's not what happened at all. The journey of the Vaimanika Shastra into our modern world is not a story of archaeology. It's a story of psychic revelation.
Right, so take a look at this. The text as we know it wasn't found. It was received. Between 1918 and 1923, a mystic, Pandit Subbaraya Shastri, claimed that the verses were being psychically dictated to him by the ancient sage Bharadwaja. He wrote it all down. Now, a couple of copies were sent out pretty early, but it was basically unknown for decades, until G.R. Josier brought it to the world's attention in the 50s, eventually publishing a full English translation in 1973. You have to remember this origin, because it's at the center of all the controversy.
The text also gives us a worldview that's totally different from our own. We think of technology as this straight line of progress, always getting better. But the Shastra is based on the Hindu concept of yugas, these vast cosmic cycles. And it claims that technology, especially flight, is directly linked to the spiritual state of humanity. As our spirit weakens, so does our technology.
And you can see that decline right here. In the Treta Yuga, a golden age of spirituality, the Vimanas were mantrika. They were literally powered by thought, by psychic energy and powerful mantras. No engine needed. As humanity fell into the Dwapara Yuga, flight required tantrika methods, complex rituals and tantras. And now, in our age, the Kali Yuga, all we have left is kritaka, which means artificial. We're left with clunky physical machines. It's a story of technological loss, not gain.
So the text really focuses on these Kritika Vimanas, the mechanical craft supposedly designed for our current, fallen age. And it doesn't just talk about them in general terms. It lays out what it claims are blueprints for 4 very specific types of aircraft.
First up is the Shakuna Vimana, and you can see it's basically a giant mechanical bird. It's an ornithopter. It's described as having flapping wings and a tail, all controlled by the pilot to get lift and to steer. It's this beautiful blend of pure mechanics trying to copy the elegance of nature.
But then you have the Sundara Vimana, which is the complete opposite. It's not trying to mimic anything, it's all about raw power. The text describes it as a sleek, silvery craft that looks a lot like a modern rocket, built for just one thing: speed and vertical ascent, powered by 5 different gas engines.
And then there's the Rukma Vimana. This one is just incredible. Picture a golden cone-shaped vessel 5 stories tall. But its most amazing claim? Its speed. The Shastra says this thing could fly at 725 miles per hour. That's faster than the speed of sound. Think about that. A claim made in the early 1900s. Just astonishing.
And finally, we get to the most versatile craft of them all, the Tripura Vimana. This thing was like the ancient world's ultimate all-terrain vehicle. It was made of 3 sections that could separate to travel on land or even submerge and move underwater. Then they could rejoin and fly through the air. A true 3-in-1 marvel.
So you're probably wondering, what were these incredible machines built out of? Well, a huge part of the text is dedicated to what it calls Loha Didhakarnam, the science of metals. It describes how to make over 400 different specialized materials: alloys, glasses, ceramics, many with properties that sound impossible, created using methods that feel more like alchemy than science.
The details here are just mind-bending. For that all-terrain Tripura Vimana, it called for something called Trinatra Loha, a metal described as not only indestructible and heat-resistant, but also weightless. For stealth, there was Thamogarbala Loha, an alloy that could absorb light to make the craft invisible. And the recipes to make them? That's where it gets really weird. They called for things like eagle bones, sea foam, and even monkey skin.
Now, at the core of many of these aircraft designs is a truly radical idea for a power source: the mercury vortex engine. The basic concept is you heat mercury inside a special apparatus. This generates what the text calls a thunder power, creating a powerful vortex, a whirlwind, that pushes the Vimana. It's fascinating because many people today look at this and see an ancient description of something very similar to our modern ion propulsion systems.
But of course, building the machine is only one part of the equation. The Vaimanika Shastra is very clear that flying one of these things wasn't just about pulling levers and pushing buttons. To be a pilot was to be a master of 32 secret skills.
The text itself says it all, right there. The pilot is one who knows the secrets. It implies that the role was less of a technician and more of a sage, an initiate into a hidden body of knowledge.
And these secrets, they sound like something out of science fiction. There was Gudana, the secret to making the Vimana invisible by manipulating solar rays. Rupakarshana was a kind of remote viewing technology, a photographic yantra that let you see inside an enemy plane. Parashabdgrahaka was basically an electronic listening device. And then there were even stranger abilities, like Sankocha, which allowed the pilot to shrink the aircraft in midair. It really does blur that line between technology and magic.
Okay, so we've got a text with these unbelievable technical claims, but it comes to us through a mystic channel. And the things it describes seem to defy physics as we know it. So naturally, this has led to a massive debate.
The whole controversy really boils down to this. On one side, you have those who believe it's a genuine piece of ancient knowledge, describing technologies that were centuries ahead of their time. But on the other side, skeptics point out that no manuscript older than the 1920s has ever been found. They argue it's more likely a brilliant piece of modern, inspired fiction, not a real historical document.
And the scientific establishment came down hard. In 1974, aeronautical engineers from the very prestigious Indian Institute of Science studied the blueprints. Their conclusion was pretty blunt. They said the designs were unfeasible, that they completely ignored the basic principles of aerodynamics. In other words, they just wouldn't fly. But that's not the end of the story, because while the aeronautics seemed to be nonsense, the metallurgy was another matter entirely. Later on, researchers sponsored by the Indian National Science Academy actually tried to make some of these strange alloys. And guess what? They succeeded. They created materials like Panchaloha and confirmed that, just as the text claimed, they had unique properties, like being incredibly resistant to corrosion. So here we are, left with this beautiful paradox. A text that describes flying machines that can't fly, but made of advanced materials that can actually be created. Is it a lost blueprint from a forgotten age of wonders? Or is it a breathtaking piece of 20th century fiction, a product of inspired genius? What the Vaimanika Shastra truly represents is a question we are still trying to answer.